Back. So we have another chapter, another part of the chapter that we're just reading. So we were just talking about how someone named Nancy Bobofit was kind of a tormentor to him. So now he's dealing with this other lady that has long, stringy hair, but it was brown instead of red. So we're going to find out more about her right now. Remember, this chapter again is called I Become Supreme Lord of the Bathroom, and it gets interesting really quick. I kept walking, trying to stay clear of Chiron's hooves. We haven't seen each other or seen any other centaurs, I observed. No, Chiron said sadly. My kinsmen are a wild and barbaric folk, I'm afraid. You might encounter them in the wilderness or at major sporting events, but you won't see any here. You said her name was Chiron. Are you really? He smiled down at me. The Chiron from the stories? Trainer of Hercules and all that? Yes, Percy, I am. But shouldn't you be dead? Chiron paused as if the question intrigued him. I honestly don't know about should be. The truth is, I can't be dead. You see, eons ago, the gods granted my wish. I could continue the work I loved. I could be a teacher of heroes as long as humanity needed me. I gained much from that wish, and I gave up much. But I'm still here, and so I can assume I'm still needed. I thought about being a teacher for 3,000 years. It wouldn't have made my top 10 things to wish for list. Mine either. Doesn't it ever get boring? No, no, he said. Horribly depressing at times, but never boring. Why depressing? Chiron seemed to turn hard of hearing again. Oh, look, he said. Annabeth is waiting for us. Getting great at changing the subjects. The blonde girl I'd met at the big house was reading a book in front of the lawn of the last cabin of number on the left, number 11. When we reached her, she looked me over critically like she was thinking about how much I drooled. I tried to see what she was reading, but I couldn't make out the title. I thought my dyslexia was acting up. Then I realized the title wasn't even English. The letters looked Greek to me. I mean, literally Greek. There were pictures of temples and statues and different kinds of columns, like those in an architecture book. Annabeth, Chiron said, I have master's archery class at noon. Would you take Percy from here? Yes, sir. Cabin 11, Chiron told me, gesturing toward the doorway. Make yourself at home. Out of all the cabins, 11 looked like the most regular old summer camp cabin, if I can read, with the emphasis on old. The threshold was worn down, the brown painting peeling. Over the doorway was one of those doctor symbols, a winged pole with two snakes wrapped around it. What do they call it? A caduceus. Inside, it was packed with people, both boys and girls, way more than the number of bunk beds. Sleeping bags were spread all over the floor. It looked like a gym where the Red Cross had set up an evacuation center. Chiron didn't go in. The door was too low for him, but when the campers saw him, they all stood and bowed respectfully. Well then, Chiron said, good luck, Percy. I'll see you at dinner. He galloped toward the archery range. I stood in the doorway looking at the kids. They weren't bowing anymore. They were staring at me, sizing me up. I knew this routine. I'd gone through it enough at schools. Well, Annabeth prompted. Go on. So naturally, I tripped coming in the door and made a total fool of myself. There were some snickers from the campers, but none of them said anything. Annabeth announced, Percy Jackson, meet cabin 11. Regular or undetermined? Somebody asked. I didn't know what to say, but Annabeth said, undetermined. Ugh, everybody groaned. A guy who was a little older than the rest came forward. Now, campers. That's what we're here for. Welcome, Percy. You can have that spot on the floor right over there. The guy was about 19 and he looked pretty cool. He was tall and muscular with short cropped sandy hair and a friendly smile. He wore an orange tank top, cutoffs, sandals, and a leather necklace with 5 different colored clay beads. The only thing unsettling about his appearance was a thick white scar that ran just beneath his right eye to his jaw, like an old knife slash. This is Luke, Annabeth said, and her voice sounded different somehow. I glanced over and could have sworn she was blushing. You know what that means. Uh-oh! She saw me looking and her expression hardened again. He's your counselor, for now. You're undetermined, Luke explained patiently. They don't know what cabin to put you in, so you're here. Cabin 11 takes all newcomers, all visitors. Naturally, we would. Hermes, our patron, is a god of travelers. I looked at the tiny section of the floor they'd given me. I had nothing to put there to mark as my own luggage. Or mark as my own. No luggage, no clothes, no sleeping bags. Just the Minotaur's horn. I thought about setting that down, but then I remembered that Hermes was also the god of thieves. I looked around at the campers' faces, some sullen and some suspicious, some grinning stupidly, some eyeing me as if they were waiting for a chance to pick my pockets. How long will I be here? I asked. Good question, Luke said. Until you're determined. How long will that take? The campers all laughed. Come on, Annabeth told me. I'll show you the volleyball court. I've already seen it. Come on! She grabbed my wrist and dragged me outside. I could hear the kids of Cabin 11 laughing behind me. When we were a few feet away, Annabeth said, Jackson, you have to do better than that. What? She rolled her eyes and mumbled under her breath. I can't believe I thought you were the one. What's your problem? I was getting angry now. All I know is I killed some bull guy. Don't talk like that, Annabeth told me. You don't know how many kids at this camp wish they had your chance. To get killed? To fight the Minotaur. What do you think we trained for? I shook my head. Look, if that thing I really thought was the Minotaur, the same one in the stories, yes. Then there's only one. Yes. And he died like a gazillion years ago, right? Theseus killed him in the labyrinth, so... Monsters don't die, Percy. They can be killed, but they don't die. Oh, thanks. That clears it up. They don't have souls like you and me. You can dispel them for a while, maybe even for a whole lifetime if you're lucky. But they are primal forces. Chiron calls them archetypes. Eventually, they reform. I thought about Mrs. Dodds. You mean if I killed one accidentally with a sword? I mean your math teacher? That's right, she's still out there. You just made her very, very mad. How'd you know about Mrs. Dodds? You talk in your sleep. So he talks and he drools in his sleep. You almost called her something. A fury. They're Hades' torturers, right? Annabeth glanced nervously at the ground, as if she expected it to open up and swallow her. You shouldn't call them by name, even here. They keep saying that over and over again. We call them the kindly ones, if we have to speak of them at all. Look, is there anything we can say without it thundering? It sounded whining even to myself, but right then I didn't care. Why do I have to stay in cabin 11 anyway? Why is everybody so crowded together? There are plenty of empty bunks right over there. I pointed to the first two cabins, and Annabeth turned pale. You don't just choose a cabin, Percy. It depends on who your parents are, or your parents. She stared at me, waiting for me to get it. My mom is Sally Jackson, I said. She works at the candy store in Grand Central Station. At least, she used to. I'm sorry about your mom, Percy. But that's not what I mean. I'm talking about your other parent, your dad. He's dead. I never knew him. Annabeth sighed. Clearly, she'd had this conversation before with other kids. Your father's not dead, Percy. How can you say that? You know him? No, of course not. Then how can you say, because I know you? You wouldn't be here if you weren't one of us. You don't know anything about me. No, she raised an eyebrow. I bet you moved around from school to school. I bet you were kicked out of a lot of them. How? Diagnosed with dyslexia, probably ADHD too. I tried to swallow my embarrassment. What does that have to do with anything? Taken together, it's almost a sure sign. The letters float off the page when you read, right? That's because your mind is hardwired for ancient Greek. And the ADHD, you're impulsive. Can't sit still in the classroom. That's your battlefield reflexes. In a real fight, they'll keep you alive. As for attention problems, that's probably because you see too much, Percy, not too little. Your senses are better than a regular mortal's. Of course, the teachers want you medicated. Most of them are monsters. They don't want you seeing them for what they are. You sound like you went through the same thing. Most of the kids here did. If you weren't like us, you couldn't have survived the Minotaur, much less the ambrosia and nectar. Ambrosia and nectar. The food and drink we were giving you to make you feel better. The stuff that would have killed a normal kid. It would have turned your blood to fire and your bones to sand, and you'd be dead. Face it, you're a half-blood. A half-blood. I was reeling with so many questions, I didn't know where to start. Then a husky voice yelled, Well, a newbie! I looked over the big girl, so kind of like the Nancy Bubblefoot girl. The big girl from the ugly red cabin was sauntering toward us. She had 3 other girls behind her, all big and ugly and mean looking like her, all wearing camel jackets. Clarice, Annabeth sighed. Why don't you go polish your spear or something? Sure, Miss Princess, the big girl said, so I can run you through with it Friday nights. Airy Caracas, Annabeth said. which I somehow understood was Greek for "go to the crows," though I had a feeling it was a worse curse than it sounded. "You don't stand a chance. We'll pulverize you," Clarice said, but her eye twitched. Perhaps she wasn't sure she could follow through on the threat. She turned toward me. "Who's this little runt?" "Percy Jackson," Annabeth said. "Meet Clarice, daughter of Ares." I blinked. "Like the war god?" Clarice sneered. "You got a problem with that?" This is where it gets really interesting, so hang in there. "No," I said, recovering my wits. "It explains the bad smell." Clarice growled. "We got an initiation ceremony for newbies, Prissy." "Percy, whatever. Come on, I'll show you." "Clarice," Annabeth tried to say. "Stay out of it, wise girl." Annabeth looked pained, but she did stay out of it. And I didn't really want the help. I was a new kid and I had to earn my own rep. I handed Annabeth my Minotaur horn and got ready to fight, but before I knew it, Clarice had me by the neck and was dragging me toward a cinder block building that I knew immediately was the bathroom. So if you're Percy, what do you do right now if this really big, strong, muscular girl is grabbing you and taking you to the bathroom to do who knows what? We can probably use our imagination. Go ahead and pause for a second. What would you do? I think I'd do exactly what Percy's immediately doing. I was kicking and punching. I've been in plenty of fights before, but this big girl, Clarice, had hands like iron. She dragged me into the girls' bathroom. There was a line of toilets on one side and a line of shower stalls down the other. It smelled just like any other public bathroom, and I was thinking, as much as I could think with Clarice ripping my hair out, that if this place belonged to the gods, they should have been able to afford classier Johns. Clarice's friends were all laughing, and I was trying to find the strength I'd use to fight the Minotaur, but it just wasn't there. "Like he's Big Three material," Clarice said as she pushed me toward one of the toilets. "Yeah, right. Minotaur probably fell over laughing. He was so stupid looking." Her friends snickered. Annabeth stood in the corner watching through her fingers. Clarice bent me over on my knees and started pushing my head toward the toilets. I'm just going to give him a swirly right now. It reeked like rusted pipes and, well, what goes into toilets. I strained to keep my head up. I was looking at the scummy water thinking, I will not go into that. I won't. Then something happened. I felt a tug in the pit of my stomach. I heard the plumbing rumble, the pipe shudder, Clarice's grip on my hair loosened. Water shot out of the toilet, making an arc straight over my head. And next thing I knew, I was sprawled on the bathroom tiles with Clarice screaming behind me. I turned just as water blasted out of the toilet again, hitting Clarice straight in the face so hard it pushed her down onto her butt. The water stayed on her like the spray from a fire hose, pushing her backward into the shower stall. She struggled, gasping, and her friends started coming toward her, but then the other toilets exploded too, and 6 more streams of toilet water blasted them back. The showers acted up too, and together all the fixtures sprayed the camouflage girls right out of the bathroom, spinning them around like pieces of garbage being washed away. As soon as they were out the door, I felt the tug in my gut lessen, and the water shut off as quickly as it had started. The entire bathroom was flooded. Annabeth hadn't been spared. She was dripping wet, but she hadn't been pushed out the door. She was standing in the exact same place, staring at me in shock. I can picture her like, what? I looked down and realized I was sitting in the only dry spot in the whole room. There was a circle of dry floor around me. I didn't have one drop of water on my clothes. Nothing. I stood up, my legs shaky. Annabeth said, "How did you—" "I don't know." We walked to the door. Outside, Clarice and her friends were sprawled in the mud, and a bunch of other campers had gathered around to gawk. Clarice's hair was flattened across her face. Her camouflage jacket was sopping, and she smelled like sewage. She gave me a look of absolute hatred. "You are dead, new boy. You are totally dead." I probably should have let it go, but I said, "You want to gargle with the toilet water again, Clarice? Close your mouth." Her friends had to hold her back. They dragged her toward Cabin 5, while the other campers made their way to avoid her flailing feet. Annabeth stared at me. I couldn't tell whether she was just grossed out or angry at me for dousing her. "What?" I demanded. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking," she said, "that I want you on my team for Capture the Flag." And that's the end of Chapter 6. Thanks for listening. We'll do chapter 7 tomorrow.